The most frightening thing about AI is not that it's learning how to think. It's that it's forcing us to ask, have we really been thinking at all? For most of human history, we believed intelligence was what made us special. Then, within just a few years, a machine began to write. It began to paint. It began to code. It began to argue. It began to answer questions that once belonged only to human minds. And suddenly, millions of people woke up with the same fear. Not, AI is going to take my job. But, if AI can do what I do, then who am I? For thousands of years, human beings built their identity around a simple belief. My value comes from what I can create. The hunter was respected because he could hunt. The craftsman because of his skillful hands. The scholar because of his knowledge. The artist because of his creativity. Civilization itself was built upon this principle. Do more, know more, create more, become more useful. Then AI arrived, and for the first time in history, intelligence no longer seemed to belong exclusively to biology. A model trained on trillions of words, absorbing what feels like the digitized memory of humanity, and with a few prompts, producing work that once required years of study. But that's not the most unsettling part. The most unsettling part is what it reveals about us. That perhaps, many of the things we call creativity, are patterns rearranged in ways that simply surprise us. People often call AI a technology, but that isn't entirely true. AI is more like a mirror built from data. And data is the largest psychological footprint humanity has ever left behind. Every article, every argument, every poem, every confession posted online at 2 in the morning, every fear, every desire, every prejudice, every dream, all of it was recorded. All of it became raw material. And then AI learned from it. In a sense, when you talk to AI, you're speaking to the echo of billions of human minds. A kind of collective unconscious compressed into algorithms. And that's where a paradox emerges. We created AI from our own data. Yet the more powerful it becomes, the more clearly it helps us see ourselves. The biases we never noticed. The patterns we endlessly repeat. The ways of thinking we once disguised as individuality. People often ask, which jobs will AI replace first? But that may be the wrong question. Because AI isn't only replacing labor. It's replacing something much deeper. The feeling of being needed. Psychologically speaking, human beings need more than food and shelter. We need to feel that our existence matters. That if we disappeared, the world would be at least slightly different. For centuries, work was where many of us found that meaning. But if an algorithm can do your job faster, cheaper, and sometimes better, what happens to the identity built around that work? That's why the AI revolution creates so much anxiety. Not because of machines, but because of the ego. Not because of technology, but because of meaning. I once asked AI, how'd I avoid being replaced by AI? It gave a perfectly reasonable answer. Learn new skills, adapt, understand technology, think creatively, solve problems. All good advice. But then I realized something strange. AI knows the answer. But it doesn't live with the question. It can write an essay about loneliness. But it has never been lonely. It can explain grief. But it has never lost someone. It can describe love. But it has never felt its hands tremble when a certain person walks into the room. It understands the patterns of emotion, but not the weight of them. And what emerges from that realization may change the way we think about intelligence itself. Perhaps intelligence is not the most important thing. Perhaps experience is what gives rise to consciousness. The distance between knowing and living. Between information and existence. Between simulation and being. If AI continues to advance, we may enter a very strange era. An era where information becomes almost free. Knowledge becomes universally accessible. Productivity becomes automated. But when everyone has answers, the rarest resource will no longer be knowledge. It will be attention. The ability to focus. The ability to think independently. The ability to know what is actually worth caring about. That is when the question will no longer be, is AI smarter than humans? But, do humans still control their own attention? Because algorithms don't merely predict behavior. They are learning to shape behavior. Not merely reflect desire, but generate desire. Not merely understand perception, but gradually reconstruct perception itself. Perhaps our greatest mistake is believing this is a battle between humans and AI. It isn't. The real battle has always been between two versions of ourselves. The version driven by curiosity, and the version seduced by convenience. The version that chooses to think, and the version that delegates thinking to a system. AI simply makes that conflict impossible to ignore. It forces us to confront a question civilization has postponed for far too long. If your value does not come from what you produce, where does it come from? If a machine can do almost everything you can do, what remains? Perhaps the answer is not skill, not profession, not productivity, but the ability to experience life consciously, the ability to love, the ability to suffer, the ability to change, the ability to continually reinvent yourself. Things that cannot be downloaded, cannot be copied, cannot be compressed into data. I began with a question about AI, but I ended up finding a question about humanity. Maybe that was always the point. Every sufficiently powerful technology eventually becomes a mirror. And AI may be the largest mirror humanity has ever built. It reflects our intelligence, our brilliance, our biases, our deepest fears, and when we look into that mirror, the biggest question is no longer, will AI replace humans? But, as artificial intelligence reshapes the world, is it also reshaping the way we understand ourselves? Or perhaps more